She just woke up, all groggy, and was shocked to find herself lying in a hospital bed, covered in serious injuries. But her mind is totally blank. She can't remember anything, but somehow, she's super sensitive to everything around her. Even the tiniest noises outside the hospital room come through crystal clear. Suddenly, the door is kicked open, and a barrage of bullets comes flying at her. Her brain doesn't even have time to process what's happening, but her body instinctively dodges the attack. The bullets only manage to hit a water bottle next to her bed. In the next moment, a masked man dressed in black walks in with a gun, expecting to find her dead. But when he doesn't see a body, he starts looking around carefully. That's when she suddenly appears behind him, as silent as a shadow, holding a sharp scalpel. With one swift move, she takes him down. Despite the victory, she's even more confused. Who is she? How does she have these insane skills? And why is someone out to get her at the hospital? As she's lost in thought, another masked figure sneaks up behind her and presses a gun to her head. You never expected this day to come, did you? Now the bounty's all mine. Her nerves tighten as she realizes she's about to die. Before she goes, she desperately wants to know who she really is. But the masked man doesn't care to chat, he just wants to finish the job quickly, afraid of what she might do. A gunshot echoed through the room, followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. But the pain she expected never came. Startled, she turned around, only to see that it was the masked man who had fallen to the ground. How could you have been caught off guard by such a low-level thug? You must really be seriously injured this time. Looking toward the source of a man's mocking voice, she saw a tall figure standing at the doorway, holding a gun. His handsome face radiated a deadly seriousness, a vibe that even his sharp black suit couldn't hide. He looked like a lone leopard, lurking in the shadows, ready to strike. The guy was cool, no doubt about it. But she still had no idea who he was. After a moment of silence, the man's deep, intense eyes twinkled with a hint of amusement, and a slight, playful smile curved his lips. "I'm your husband," he said. She immediately gasped in disbelief. No way! How could she have such a cool husband? Tall nose, sexy thin lips, chiseled features that looked like they were carved by an artist, and, wait, was his shirt about to burst open from his muscles? Just thinking about it made her imagine how ripped he must be. Before she knew it, she had darted into the man's arms, taking the chance to nuzzle against his chest. Yep, just as firm as she'd imagined. The cool, composed man was instantly thrown off guard, his hands awkwardly flailing, unsure of where to go. Whoa, whoa! You believe I'm your husband just like that? You're not even going to question it, he asked, bewildered. But she just looked up at him with a sweet smile, calling him hubby over and over, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Sure, she might have amnesia, but she wasn't stupid. Who would question a guy holding a gun? Besides, the fight had drained her energy, leaving her too weak to do anything else. She had to take a gamble. Before long, she fainted, but luckily, the man caught her just in time. As she lost consciousness, she mumbled softly, "Hubby, save me. I'll be a good girl, I promise." A strange, mixed feeling surged within the man. Unsure, he asked, "Really? You'll really be good?" This was a woman who was usually cold, strong, and rebellious, a lone wolf. But now she was saying she'd be obedient. Just when he had lost hope, she gave him a glimmer of it, but maybe it would have been better if she hadn't given him any at all. Because of it, Ji Yuxingye immediately fired at the man in black, who Li Yuan had already knocked down. Before the man in black could launch another sneak attack, he got shot in the arm. Typical Ji Yuxingye, if I died at your hands, it wouldn't be shameful. But Ji Yuxingye just sneered and tossed a blade. You think you can ambush Li Yuan? Though to be fair, she was hurt pretty badly, otherwise, she'd never leave someone alive. A moment later, he ordered the men who had arrived to take the man in black back and have some fun with him until he spilled everything they needed to know. One of the men, Liu Zi, immediately noticed Li Yuan lying unconscious on the ground. He was about to strangle this poisonous woman to avenge his brothers when the boss sternly stopped him. "Don't touch her." At this moment, something unusual happened. Ji Yuxingye actually showed a flash of panic in his eyes. Liu Zi couldn't believe it. Why would the boss protect this woman? After all, she'd already injured so many of their brothers. If they didn't kill her now, she'd definitely come back to kill them later. Yet Ji Yuxingye, in an unshakably firm tone, repeated, "I said, don't touch her." Liu Zi was baffled. What was going on? Wasn't this the boss who could handle anything, from sweet talk to tough love? He could even endure seduction tactics, like being pampered with tender care after a fight or getting his wounds treated. But now he was rattled? The next morning, when she opened her eyes, she saw her husband lying beside her, showing off an 18-pack. He was lounging lazily in bed, his clothes draped loosely, like a relaxed leopard patiently waiting for his beautiful prey. In an instant, her face turned bright red. Seriously? Flirting first thing in the morning? Is this really appropriate? Yet she couldn't help but habitually doubt whether this man was really her husband. In the next moment, she noticed his gaze sharpen suddenly. Quickly, she plastered a joyful smile on her face. "Oh, it's hubby. Good morning, hubby." Only then did he nod in satisfaction before leaning in and softly asking her if she remembered anything. As he spoke, his intense eyes carefully examined her expressions, though she didn't need to hide anything since she couldn't even remember her own name. Hearing this, the man couldn't help but relax, a hint of hidden tenderness flickering in his eyes. Gently, he lifted her chin and said, "Just remember, I'm Ji Yuxingye, your husband, Li Yuan." But Li Yuan's face turned a deep shade of red, overwhelmed by the close proximity and his intense masculine energy. For some reason, though, she felt a bit uneasy with his dominant way of speaking. Ji Yuxingye seemed to pick up on this and quickly added, "You're not thinking of ditching your ordinary husband, are you?" Li Yuan immediately shook her head in denial, but suddenly gasped in pain as Ji Yuxingye accidentally touched a wound that had reopened from the day before. She was about to call for a doctor, but he stopped her. "No need for a doctor, I can handle this." As he spoke, Ji Yuxingye slowly began to remove her nightgown, his deep, raspy voice almost hypnotic. "Don't worry, we're married. I know every inch of your body, even the tattoo on your back, I inked it myself." He tried to make his movements seem natural and practiced, but then he began planting a trail of cold kisses along her sensitive neck, biting and nibbling, rough and eager, as he moved upward across her body. She wanted to cry out, but shamefully covered her mouth. Ji Yuxingye suddenly licked behind her ear, asking in a low voice, "Remember anything?" Her face flushed even deeper as she turned to look at him, only to see his clear eyes watching her closely. Her mind instantly snapped into focus. He was testing her to see if she was truly adjusting to this situation. She decided to play along to figure out the true nature of their relationship, but being exposed like this was just too embarrassing. Li Yuan was getting impatient and urged him to hurry up with treating her wound. Ji Yuxingye, clearly annoyed, shot back, "If I could rush, I wouldn't be a man." After finishing with the injury on her body, Ji Yuxingye checked her head wound one more time, just to be sure. He gave her a warm, friendly smile, and she could tell that this supposed husband of hers didn't mean her any harm. But that didn't mean she was going to let her guard down. She might have lost her memory, but her brains are still intact. One careful move, a simple glance, and she was 100% sure this guy wasn't her real husband. He might even be her worst enemy from before she lost her memory. Even this morning at breakfast, when Ji Yuxingye was feeding her so naturally and gently, Li Yuan still picked up on two weird details. First, Ji Yuxingye was using a high-carbon stainless steel knife that could easily be used as a weapon, while he handed her a harmless plastic one. And second, the way his bodyguards were watching her, they weren't just cautious, there was a hint of deadly intent in their eyes. So, she made a bold decision. Suddenly, she jumped up and reached for his knife. The moment her fingers brushed the blade, Ji Yuxingye's expression turned icy, and his bodyguards immediately tensed up, guns at the ready. It was clear, if she made one wrong move, she wouldn't leave this place alive. Quickly, she sat back down, pretending to soften up and act all sweet and innocent. "Hey, can't a girl just borrow your knife to cut some bacon?" Li Yuan asked with an overly sweet smile that felt completely out of place. Ji Yuxingye froze for a second, clearly caught off guard by her unexpected request. After a brief pause, he gently moved the knife away from her and said, "Sorry, honey, I should have cut it up for you earlier." Even though he was obviously on high alert, he still pretended to be the caring and thoughtful husband. By now, Li Yuan was absolutely certain this guy was a total fake. He was probably her worst enemy, keeping her alive for some twisted reason. As these two scheming masterminds continued their little charade, a sudden explosion rocked the floor-to-ceiling windows. Ji Yuxingye immediately pulled Li Yuan into his arms to shield her, while she secretly grabbed the stainless steel knife, her mind racing to find a way out. He held her close, whispering reassurances, "As long as I'm here, no one will hurt you." Li Yuan played along, snuggling into his embrace, but her eyes were full of cold determination. If she could just take him out, she could escape in the chaos. Just then, with a thunderous boom, shards of glass flew towards them. Without thinking, Ji Yuxingye spun around and shielded Li Yuan with his back, taking the brunt of the impact. Blood instantly covered Li Yuan's hands, and she stared in shock. Why would her sworn enemy risk his life to protect her? Little did she know, it was all because of her desperate plea earlier, "Hubby, save me. I'll be a good girl, I promise." The truth was, from the start, Li Yuan had suspected that the man before her wasn't her husband but her mortal enemy. But after he risked his life to protect her during the sudden ambush, she started to wonder, could this man really be her husband? While there was a lot of emotional tension inside the room, outside, an intense battle was raging. A pink-haired woman, clearly unhinged, yelled at the top of her lungs, "Li Yuan, I know you're in there. Get out here!" She was waving an AK-47 around like she owned the place. When there was no response from inside, Song Luo's face twisted with rage, and she started firing wildly at the room. Li Yuan quickly moved out of the way, and a bullet zipped right past her ear, slamming into the door next to her. She noticed something strange about it and, after taking a closer look, realized it was a rubber bullet, not a real one. Instantly, she knew this was another one of Ji Yuxingye's tests. Lucky for her, she hadn't made a move yet, or she would have fallen right into his trap. Meanwhile, outside, 3 of Song Luo's men were desperately trying to convince Song Luo to retreat. They were being serious now, because Ji Yuxingye's men were coming after them with real guns. But Song Luo was too stubborn to leave just yet. Suddenly, a real bullet whizzed by, grazing her pink hair. At that point, she had no choice but to retreat to a safe spot. Furious and still out of breath, she took out her anger on her men, yelling, "You useless idiots! You're pathetic!" One of her men, nervous, asked, "But second boss, why did we risk going after Ji Yuxingye in the first place?" "Are you kidding me?" "Of course, it was to rescue our leader." With enough chaos, Li Yuan could have easily escaped. "But no, you idiots messed it all up," Song Luo snapped, even more frustrated. She still vividly remembered the first time she saw Li Yuan. She was wearing 15-centimeter high heels, confidently pressing down on a man's head. Her wavy hair fell elegantly over her shoulders, exuding a seductive charm. She looked like an unstoppable, arrogant queen. Song Luo was immediately stunned. She had never seen a woman like that before, arrogant and commanding, like a fully bloomed poppy, radiating a dangerously captivating allure. The man could only lower his head, mumbling, "Her dad offered her as payment to me. My brothers and I just wanted a taste. Please, Sister Yuan, let me go." But Li Yuan just let out a mocking laugh, saying, "You bully the weak and bow down to the strong. You're nothing but a cowardly piece of trash." Suddenly, Li Yuan shoved a gun into Song Luo's trembling hand, forcing her to end that living nightmare herself. From that moment on, she made herself learn how to become stronger. Since that day, Li Yuan became more than just her boss, she was like a goddess to her. Meanwhile, that same goddess was now skillfully tending to Ji Yuxingye's wounds, playing the role of a good wife. As she did, she accidentally noticed a deep scar near his tattoo and froze in surprise. She found it odd, considering how skilled he was and how loyal his men were, who could have hurt him unless he allowed it. As she stared blankly at the scar, Ji Yuxingye's eyes narrowed as he watched her. After a moment, he calmly asked, "What's got you so distracted?" Li Yuan snapped back to reality and quickly turned on the charm, flattering him. "I'm just admiring my husband's perfect body." Ji Yuxingye couldn't help but smile at that. "If that's the case, why don't you come with me to change clothes? You'll get to admire it even more." Li Yuan didn't refuse. Who could say no when this man's body was so impressive? Plus, it gave her a chance to snoop around the closet for clues to see if they were really married. But the moment she saw the clothes, she was completely stunned. Wait, JK uniforms? Is Ji Yuxingye into the whole innocent schoolgirl look? And what's with these cutesy Lolita outfits? Does this guy seriously have this many preferences? But the most shocking thing was a whole row of revealing, mature-looking dresses. Don't tell her that before losing her memory, she actually wore stuff like this to keep her husband happy. Among all the weird clothes, there was this white t-shirt that looked pretty cool, so she stared at it a little longer. Right then, Ji Yuxingye's usually cold eyes lit up with a mix of excitement and hope. "Did you remember something? That shirt holds our precious memories." Li Yuan was freaked out by how suggestive that sounded, thinking to herself, could this guy speak more clearly? "Which shirt? First time what? Stop messing with my amnesiac brain with this weird stuff." Li Yuan broke out in a cold sweat, pretending to be totally clueless. But Ji Yuxingye's heart sank. His face suddenly darkened, and his gaze shifted back to that white t-shirt, the one he'd kept for 14 years, 66 days, and 48 hours, the one that Li Yuan had given him as an engagement gift back then. He would never forget that day. Back then, he was dragged out by little Li Yuan to be her personal pack mule, his entire body weighed down with gifts to hand out. While Ji Yuxingye was grumbling in frustration, little Li Yuan suddenly pulled out a plain white t-shirt from one of the shopping bags he was holding, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I bought this for you." Even though it was just an ordinary white t-shirt, something hit his hard in the chest, but he stubbornly refused, saying, "I'm not that easy to bribe, I'm not going to be friends with you." But then, Li Yuan seriously explained, "I don't want to be just friends with you either. This shirt is my engagement gift to you. From now on, you're mine, and I'm your wife." At that time, Ji Yuxingye was still clueless about feelings, and when he heard those words, his face instantly turned bright red. You? You're like a toad wanting to eat swan meat. I won't take your shirt." But in the end, he never wore the shirt, even though it got too small for him. He cherished the memory of Li Yuan's domineering declaration and ended up falling head over heels for this strong woman. Suddenly, Li Yuan's words snapped Ji Yuxingye back to the present. "Is it because these clothes are so special that you remember them so clearly?" The moment the question left his mouth, Ji Yuxingye blushed and quickly denied it, loudly insisting that it wasn't like that at all. The last thing he wanted was for Li Yuan to think he was some kind of special instead of a pervert. Flustered, he tried to explain, "I don't come here often, but it's really safe. So, I had Hua Juanza prepare some women's clothes, but I didn't expect he to buy these." Feeling incredibly awkward, the man fidgeted, and Li Yuan felt even more embarrassed. Without realizing it, she raised her hand to scratch her chin, and Ji Yuxingye immediately noticed the band-aid still on her finger. Worried, he pulled her hand closer to check it out, and as he did, the distance between them suddenly shrank. As Ji Yuxingye looked deeply into Li Yuan's eyes, filled with a mix of intensity and tenderness, her face suddenly flushed red, even down to her ears. Ji Yuxingye then grinned and said, "Actually, there's another way to make your wound heal faster. Want to hear it?" He tried to steady his racing heart as he gently kissed each of her fingers. A shiver of electricity shot from Li Yuan's fingers straight to her heart, and in the next moment, she felt surrounded by an overwhelming wave of his intense energy, making her knees go weak. Just as Ji Yuxingye was about to go in for a second kiss, one of his clueless subordinates barged in, reporting that the doctor had arrived. Frustrated by the interruption, Ji Yuxingye shot the intruder a deadly glare for a solid 2 minutes. After a thorough checkup, the doctor concluded that Li Yuan's memory loss was due to a physical injury and estimated that her memory might return in as little as 6 months, or it could take up to a year or two. But to Li Yuan, even the shortest timeline felt too long. She wasn't sure if staying here was safe, especially since she still had no idea who Ji Yuxingye really was or what he wanted. When the checkup was over, Li Yuan stood quietly by the window, watching from a distance as Ji Yuxingye walked the doctor out. She noticed him receiving a bottle of unmarked medicine, though she wasn't sure if the doctor offered it or if Ji Yuxingye asked for it. Curious and cautious, she immediately approached him and asked, "Did the doctor mention anything important?" Ji Yuxingye casually pulled out the unmarked bottle and explained, "The doctor gave me this. He said it's for nourishing brain cells and might help you regain your memory." Then he said, "Be good and take one." Be good? Li Yuan thought. Your six-pack abs don't have a label, and neither do these pills. Who in their right mind would take something like that? I might have amnesia, but I'm not stupid. What's in these vitamins? What's their name, and why don't they have a label? Li Yuan smiled sweetly but asked these probing questions while narrowing her eyes and staring directly at Ji Yuxingye. He stared back, stunned for a moment, then suddenly broke into a sly grin. Leaning close to her ear, he teasingly asked if she was worried the pills might be poison. He had guessed her fears in just 2 seconds, leaving Li Yuan shaken. How could he be this sharp? Her emotions were written all over her face, caution, surprise, but Ji Yuxingye found it all incredibly adorable and amusing, even laughing softly. After all, how could he harm such a lovely wife? Li Yuan, however, furrowed her brow in confusion. What was so funny? And anyway, if he really wanted to kill her, he wouldn't need to resort to something as complicated as poison. Unless, of course, he intended to turn her into a fool. Who was this man, really, and what was his purpose? Li Yuan's head ached as she struggled to recall any memory, but nothing came. There was nothing Li Yuan could do, so she went back to her room to rest for a while, thinking she'd find another chance to test the situation later. After returning to her room, she kept staring at the bottle of pills on the nightstand, refusing to take any. Seeing this, Ji Yuxingye gave her a doting smile. "Do you want me to feed you personally?" he teased. Without waiting for her response, he took a pill, held it between his teeth, and leaned in close, inch by inch, until he was right in her face. As his heavy breathing grew louder in her ear, Li Yuan's body tensed up. Just before he could make contact, she turned her head away in a mix of embarrassment and anger. "I'm not taking it," she said, full of resistance. Her defiance reminded Ji Yuxingye of how she was before the amnesia, cold, distant, like she was putting up a wall between them. His pupils flared with sudden fear. Out of nowhere, he snapped, grabbing her wrists with one hand and forcefully pressing the pill into her mouth with his mouth. The mere thought of any space between them, whether it was a meter, a decimeter, a centimeter, or even a millimeter, was unbearable to him. They were supposed to be husband and wife, the closest people in the world. It wasn't until he heard her cry out in pain, like a wound being ripped open, that he suddenly realized what he had done. Instantly, the fierce man turned into a guilty puppy, desperately begging his wife for forgiveness. I'm sorry, I was too impulsive. Does your wound still hurt?" Li Yuan, her face burning with embarrassment, shook her head. After he left, she touched her lips where he had kissed them, deep in thought. Meanwhile, Ji Yuxingye didn't leave immediately after exiting the room. Instead, he stood by the door, silently punishing himself by mentally repeating "I'm sorry" 100 times. Then, he called his subordinate, Juanza, in a bad mood, to double-check that there was nothing wrong with those pills. Even though she had lost her memory, her instincts told her that her fake husband was an extremely dangerous man. What kind of big-shot guy would have such a cool, intimidating look but then act all shy like a little puppy? But the most important thing was the heavy burden of bodyguards he left her with after he went out. Now, every time she moved, the hulking bodyguards in the room would break into a cold sweat, terrified. Even when she went to the bathroom, she felt like a dozen guns were trained on her from every angle. For some reason, she couldn't shake the feeling that this awkward atmosphere was laced with a hint of danger. She knew she had to find a way to get on these bodyguards' good side. But before she could figure that out, a bald guy holding a knife showed up, and her heart jumped into her throat. Was he here to finish her off? Sure enough, the next second, the bald guy roared, "Sister-in-law, you finally came out. Now, let me show you what I can do." With a swift motion, he sliced up 3 apples in one go. "Sister-in-law, this is my signature apple slicing trick. What do you think? Was this supposed to be some kind of macho show-off move?" She really wanted to smack him upside the head, but it actually gave her a bit of inspiration. Soon enough, she had carved the apples into delicate flower shapes, so beautiful that anyone would have to admire them. But these rough guys were only impressed by her knife skills, bowing down in total awe. Well, in their eyes, sheer strength seems to command the most respect. Right? The bald guy, who just a moment ago looked so fierce, suddenly switched gears and handed her a cup of hibiscus tea, his voice trying hard to sound sweet as he called her sister-in-law, and asked her to try it. But her sharp sense of smell immediately told her something was off with the tea. She pretended not to notice and smiled, saying, "This tea is too hot, I'll drink it later." Her smile made the bald guy blush with embarrassment, and he awkwardly shuffled away. Despite this, she remained wary of the bald guy. Poisoning tea was such a complicated way to kill someone, it probably wasn't Ji Yuxingye's idea. That meant it had to be either the bald guy who brewed it or someone else who tampered with it. Someone wanted to harm her but didn't dare face her directly. This realization sparked her stubborn desire to win. Meanwhile, in the headquarters of UQ Hall, the second-in-command, Song Luo, was thoroughly pleased as she reviewed Wu Juan's profile. Not bad, not bad. This guy already seems more likable than that arrogant Ji Yuxingye. As her subordinates took the opportunity to report back the information they had gathered, one said, Wu Juan is fiercely loyal to Ji Yuxingye, values brotherhood, and is reliable, but he lacks strategic thinking. Ji Yuxingye is clever and cautious, making him a tough opponent. How about we use a honey trap on Wu Juan? The suggestion earned an approving glance from Song Luo, who immediately replied, "Great idea. You can handle it." This scared the subordinate so much that he started sweating and begged to be spared. Just then, another subordinate walked in and reported, "The doctor we captured said that the boss is now Ji Yuxingye's wife. Not only that, but she's lost her memory and has been trained to be quite obedient." Upon hearing this, Song Luo's pupils widened in shock. She had already suspected that the sly fox, Ji Yuxingye, was after Li Yuan, but now she was certain that he had taken advantage of her memory loss to manipulate her. To think that such a strong-willed woman like Li Yuan would end up like this. This was absolutely infuriating. The more she thought about it, the more her anger surged. Whether it's a honey trap or a handsome trap, she needed to rescue Li Yuan from that hellhole as soon as possible. Little did she know that this was exactly the opportunity Mr. Liao from the Chilean Society had been waiting for. All he needed to do was send an insider to kill Li Yuan and frame Ji Yuxingye. Song Luo would undoubtedly lead the entire UQ Hall to settle the score with Ji Yuxingye. While UQ Hall and Qinglong Society tore each other apart, he could sit back and reap the benefits. But what he hadn't counted on was that even with memory loss, Li Yuan was still the sharp and clever woman she had always been. Li Yuan could immediately smell the poison in the tea, so she didn't drink it. She was waiting for the culprit to lose patience and reveal themselves. She was in a battle of wills with the killer, while Ji Yuxingye's men mistakenly thought their boss's wife was just being picky about the tea and tried to soothe her. The bald guy who brewed the tea nervously stepped forward and asked, "Sister-in-law, is it the cup you don't like or the tea?" Her eyes narrowed at his words, confirming her suspicion that he was the one trying to poison her. But before she could react, the bald guy, not wanting to waste the tea, foolishly started lifting the poison cup to his own lips. Whoa, wait, this clueless idiot isn't the culprit. In a panic, Li Yuan dashed forward and slapped him hard across the face, quickly making up an excuse. There was a mosquito. The teacup shattered, spilling tea everywhere. No one had to drink it, but the culprit wasn't caught either. Frustrated, she turned and left. Meanwhile, the bald guy, holding his swollen cheek, was almost moved to tears. Wow, sister-in-law is so nice to me. My late grandma used to swat mosquitoes for me just like that. Li Yuan's plan to catch the killer by waiting had been ruined by this fool, so now she had to wait for the next opportunity, which came sooner than expected. At the same time, Mr. Liao from the Chilean Society had wrapped up his conversation with Ji Yuxingye and suggested they hit up a nightclub, joking that a boss like Ji Yuxingye, who never went after women, was a disgrace. But Ji Yuxingye stubbornly insisted on heading back home early. Just then, he got an urgent call. The moment he heard that something had happened to Li Yuan, his expression changed drastically. He didn't even wait to hear the rest, hung up abruptly, and rushed out, speeding back to the villa as fast as he could. For the first time, Ji Yuxingye was terrified, his chest so tight he could barely breathe. He burst through the door and, with wide eyes and a trembling voice, asked, Yuan, are you okay? Compared to Ji Yuxingye's panic, Li Yuan was completely at ease. She casually popped a chip into her mouth, blinked playfully, and teased, I'm not hurt, are you a little disappointed? Come on, let me tell you what really happened. Although he was relieved that Li Yuan wasn't hurt, this incident made it clear that there was a mole in the Qinglong Society. As the vice president of Qinglong Society, Wu Juanzi felt a heavy sense of responsibility. Feeling frustrated, he stood by the roadside, trying to calm himself, when he spotted a pink-haired girl being harassed by two guys nearby. Seriously? On Qinglong Society's turf? That just made him already bad mood worse. Without a second thought, he stormed over and kicked one of the guys, sending him flying. As the two men ran off with their tails between their legs, he didn't bother to chase them. Instead, he turned his attention to the pink-haired girl, softly asking if she was okay. The girl looked up, her eyes wide and teary, trembling with fear like a startled fawn. Who would believe that this delicate-looking girl was the same crazy woman who had just gone on a shooting spree with an AK at the Qinglong Society? Li Yuan couldn't remember what kind of person she was before she lost her memory, but now she felt like the most pitiful person in the world. The only silver lining was that her body still had those sharp reflexes. So when a gun was just 0.01 centimeters away from her, her mind told her to be scared, but her body wasn't practically thrilled, eyes wide with excitement. The killer's shaking hand and hesitation to pull the trigger immediately showed that he was afraid of her, giving her a 0.5-second window, just enough time to dodge the speeding bullet. The faint sound of the bullet cutting through the air made her blood boil with adrenaline, and her body instinctively responded with a fierce 180-degree front kick, knocking the tall, masked attacker to the ground and disarming him in the process. She was about to pounce and capture him, but suddenly, the guy threw a smoke bomb. Caught off guard, she was instantly enveloped in thick smoke. Not only did she miss seeing the attacker's face, but now he had escaped too. How frustrating! After Ji Yuxingye quietly listened to the whole story, he smirked and teasingly remarked, so you didn't see his face and let him get away. What a shame. That comment really set off Li Yuan's stubborn streak, and you could almost see the words I'm so pissed written on her face. But instead of apologizing or trying to soothe her, Ji Yuxingye just smiled and bid her goodbye. Seeing him actually getting up to leave, Li Yuan immediately called out in frustration, how can you just walk away when your wife was almost shot and you haven't even comforted me? Ji Yuxingye instinctively turned back, his expression unreadable. As he slowly approached her, the sound of his footsteps echoed in her heart. Suddenly, she was pinned down on the bed, and the warmth of his breath made her feel lightheaded. Blushing, she demanded he let her go, but Ji Yuxingye responded with a helpless grin, and what if I don't? Before she knew it, she blurted out, then I'll kick you where it hurts. Realizing what she just said, her face turned crimson, almost as if it could drip with embarrassment. Ji Yuxingye wasn't any better off. His face was just as red as he quickly got up. Although they called themselves husband and wife, they still slept in separate rooms at night. But one night, Ji Yuxingye silently snuck into Li Yuan's room, holding a sharp knife, and softly asked, "Are you asleep?" Seeing that she didn't stir, he carefully moved the knife closer to her until it was just about to touch her skin, then suddenly stopped. Confirming she was really asleep, he quietly muttered to himself, "If only you could stay like this forever." That crazed obsession flickered in the dark room, revealing a terrifying glint in his eyes. After the man quietly left, Li Yuan, who had been pretending to be asleep, finally allowed herself to cry freely. Who would believe that this awkward, clueless guy is the second in command of the Qinglong gang? Even more unbelievable is that this seemingly weak, sweet girl is actually the second in command of the Suzaku gang, Song Luo. She had decided to use her charms to help rescue the amnesiac Li Yuan. When Song Luo stepped out, having carefully prepared tea spiked with alcohol while wearing a strappy miniskirt, the big guy blushed all the way to his ears. He awkwardly glanced at her before quickly looking down, unable to meet her gaze. Song Luo, noticing this, put on a scared, tearful expression and timidly mentioned that she was still a bit frightened. Hearing this, the big guy immediately rushed forward, about to pat the sweet girl's arm to comfort her, but just as he was about to touch her skin, he froze mid-air, then quickly pulled back, scratching his head shyly. Sorry, I'm Wujuanza. I don't even know your name." He didn't notice that Song Luo was glaring at him in annoyance, thinking, "Oh, so you like pretending to be clueless, huh? Let's see how long you can keep it up." So after putting down the teacup, Song Luo intentionally sat close to the big blockhead, but he quickly scooted to the other side. She had to swallow her temper and sadly told him that her name was Song Luo and that living alone always led to her being harassed. She hadn't even finished speaking when the blockhead suddenly exploded in anger like a firecracker. When she said she just needed someone to take her home, a single sentence was enough to extinguish the blockhead's fiery anger. Realizing he had overreacted, he quickly composed himself and promised that nothing like this would ever happen again. Her face turned slightly red, and her eyes were filled with a mix of shyness and admiration. Seeing that her plan was working, Song Luo slowly stood up, ready to brew another cup of hot tea, when she suddenly turned back and gave him a sweet smile, acting as if it was unintentional. But before she could react, the quick-footed blockhead swiftly rushed forward, grabbed her, and after a brief moment of eye contact, blushing deeply, he asked, "Are you okay?" Inside, Song Luo was silently cursing, "Of course, I'm not okay. How much longer are you going to keep this up? My back is killing me." But outwardly, she pretended to be weak and said she might have twisted her ankle. The blockhead instantly froze, hesitating for a long moment before awkwardly scooping her up and saying, "Let me take you back to your bedroom." Song Luo nodded obediently, but inside, she was thrilled. "See? You can't keep up the act forever, can you, little wolf?" After being carefully placed on the bed, she deliberately posed seductively, waiting for his next move. But to her shock, the blockhead firmly declared, "Take care and get some rest. I'll head out now. If you need anything, just call me." And with that, he slammed the door and left. Song Luo was left sitting there, stunned. What just happened? Did he really just bolt out of here like his pants were on fire? What does that even mean? The next day, Wujuanza eagerly ran over to the villa to deal with the attack on Li Yuan. Even though she hadn't seen the attacker's face, she was certain it was one of the bodyguards. While the bodyguards were being interrogated, Li Yuan pretended to focus on arranging flowers, but she was actually quietly observing their reactions. After an hour of questioning, she still had no clue who the attacker was. As they left, Wujuanza couldn't help but remark, "I've never seen the boss care so much about a woman before." Li Yuan just casually asked, "Really? Do you have a woman you care about?" Wujuanza froze, his expression turning awkward as his face flushed. He opened his mouth to respond, but then went silent, as if something suddenly occurred to him. Li Yuan noticed his odd reaction but didn't push it. Instead, she asked him about her relationship with Ji Yuxingye, probing if there had ever been any issues between them. After a brief moment of silence, Wojciech finally replied, "You and our boss used to be really close, closer than anyone. But later, you deeply hurt him because you betrayed him." Li Yuan was shocked, her breath catching. Her husband was good-looking, fit, and could handle both brawls and banter. How could she not be into him? When Wojciech mentioned she had betrayed Ji Yuxingye in the past, Li Yuan felt like either the world had gone mad or she had been insane before losing her memory. No wonder Wojciech always looked at her with such obsessive hatred. Just thinking about it gave her chills. She was just about to ask again about the details of her supposed betrayal when Wojciech suddenly called in the bodyguards for questioning. Frustrated, she had no choice but to wait for a private moment to bring it up again. One of the bodyguards blurted out, "I was in the storage room when I heard the gunshot, but I was, using the bathroom. I ran out so fast I didn't even pull up my pants." Seriously? How clueless could he be? All the bodyguards had alibis, but none of them could be proven. The security cameras had been tampered with before the shooting, so there was no footage to back up their claims. But right now, Li Yuan was more interested in finding out about the cheating thing. She was just about to ask again when Wojciech suddenly bolted out of the room like a scared cat. When you only have half the story, your mind tends to fill in the blanks. Her husband was handsome and fit, so if she had cheated on him before losing her memory, the only logical explanation was that something must have been seriously wrong with him in the bedroom. But wait, knowing Ji Yuxingye's crazy personality, he would never let a betrayal slide. Did that mean she was doomed? Later that evening, Ji Yuxingye came home and searched all over for Li Yuan, finally finding her in the least expected place, the kitchen. When Li Yuan heard him, she quickly tried to suck up by serving him some freshly cooked braised ribs. Ji Yuxingye was so shocked he just stared in disbelief. Li Yuan, who was usually fierce and domineering, had actually cooked a meal herself. The only explanation that made sense was that she had chopped up the attacker's body and cooked it into the dish. As Ji Yuxingye stared at the dark, unappetizing meat, his mind flashed with 100 gory scenes. Meanwhile, Li Yuan, completely oblivious to his thoughts, eagerly urged him to try it. After all, she had spent the whole afternoon frantically trying to learn how to make this dish. They say, a wife's wish is her husband's command. With no other choice, Ji Yuxingye braced himself, picked up a piece of meat, took a few bites, and quickly swallowed it. He even licked his fingers, pretending to enjoy it, and praised how delicious it was. Li Yuan's eyes lit up with excitement. She couldn't believe her first attempt had been such a success. Ji Yuxingye, with a deep and unreadable gaze, nodded approvingly and, as a reward, leaned in to give her a warm kiss, whispering in her ear, "Next time, remember to save some for me." After saying that, he excused himself to take care of some small matters. Meanwhile, Li Yuan was left in the kitchen, even more puzzled, wondering what exactly she had done to betray him and why Ji Yuxingye was still tolerating her. Those ribs were absolutely terrible. But no matter how bad they tasted, the issue of her supposed betrayal was like a ticking time bomb. She had to get on Ji Yuxingye's good side and lower his guard before her memory came back, or before he decided to get rid of her first. The best way is to win him over. Well, that definitely has to do with his injury, like, a lot. Just as she was thinking that, she suddenly heard a commotion outside. She walked out and saw a short-haired woman desperately trying to break into the villa, only to be stopped by a bald man who was carefully blocking her way. The short-haired woman immediately threw a punch at him and then, out of the corner of her eye, spotted Li Yuan. The woman's sharp, mocking voice instantly interrupted Li Yuan's thoughts, turning the scene into something out of a drama where the wife catches the mistress. Li Yuan didn't know this woman at all, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the woman was looking at her like she was the other woman. Sticking to the principle of you don't hit a smiling face, Li Yuan calmly offered her the smallest potato chip she had, smiling sweetly as she said, "Hey big sister, want a chip? I'll share one with you." Who would have thought the woman would lose it after hearing that? "You shameless woman! How dare you call me your big sister? I'm younger than you by 4 months, 21 days, an hour, and 40 minutes. How do you have the nerve to act all innocent in front of me? Li Yuan, getting fed up, snapped at her, which finally made the woman calm down. Then the woman, still seething, spat out, "Listen up, you home-wrecking tramp. I'm Ding Liang, Ji Yuxingye's actual girlfriend." Li Yuan pouted, her lips curving up in a flirtatious smirk, while her face blushed slightly, and her fingers gave a tempting beckon. Then, with a bright and carefree smile, she taunted, "I think I smell lilies. Let's see if Ding Liang still dares to scream at me in front of Ji Yuxingye, this paper tiger who couldn't even take down a bald guy. And yet she's got the nerve to call me shameless?" Li Yuan admitted she had amnesia, but she wasn't stupid. She couldn't get any intel from Hua Juanzi, but maybe she could squeeze some information out of this lovesick fool. The more riled up Ding Liang got, the more likely she'd slip up and reveal something. So Li Yuan suddenly flashed a smug smile and asked, "So, have you and Ji Yuxingye slept together yet?" After she said that, she coyly touched her lips, acting all shy like she was someone who'd just been pampered beyond belief. Ding Liang, who had just been yelling at her, suddenly turned bright red with embarrassment, and the cocky attitude she had vanished as she took a few steps back. "This has nothing to do with you, so don't get too cocky," Ding Liang stammered, but Li Yuan suddenly leaned in close, playfully tilting her chin up. "Oh, such a pretty girlfriend, and you don't even know why I'm living here. First time being hit on by a girl, huh? And it's your rival, no less." Ding Liang instantly panicked, turning her head away in a fluster. Without thinking, she blurted out, "Ji Yuxingye and you are sworn enemies. He spared your life because you took something super important from him. You even stabbed him once, cracked his collarbone. He almost died that time." Li Yuan's face froze. "Damn, I messed up big time. So this betrayal wasn't what I thought it was. All because Hua Juanzi, that blockhead, only told me half the story, making me think I was the guilty one. I even spent an afternoon making some elaborate meal to apologize. But why did everyone say I betrayed Ji Yuxingye? Could it be that I was really a villain before losing my memory?" She tried to recall something, anything, but her mind was still blank. Now that she'd heard what she needed to, she didn't bother with this lovesick idiot anymore. Meanwhile, Ding Liang was left flustered in front of Li Yuan, and her father, Ding Yuan, wasn't getting anywhere with Ji Yuxingye either. To prevent Ding Yuan from harming Li Yuan, Ji Yuxingye stayed tight-lipped like a clam, firmly denying any feelings for her and making it clear he wouldn't show her any mercy. Yet, the moment he got home and saw Li Yuan packing her bags, Ji Yuxingye immediately panicked and rushed over to demand, "What do you think you're doing? Your girlfriend, Ding Liang, told me to get out." Li Yuan said, mentioning girlfriend and immediately making Ji Yuxingye awkwardly explain that he's never actually had a girlfriend. He was worried she wouldn't believe him, so he quickly emphasized that he and Ding Liang were just acquaintances and nothing more. But Li Yuan wasn't convinced. Ji Yuxingye, now desperate, pleaded with her not to leave. Suddenly, Li Yuan leaned in close, her face just inches from his. "You locked me up here after I lost my memory, but was there another reason? Let's just put everything out in the open today." Hearing her soft and sweet voice, Ji Yuxingye looked up in shock. Li Yuan gently tugged down his shirt, her delicate fingers tracing the scar on his tattoo, sending shivers down his spine with each touch. As her fingers slid lower, brushing against his chest, Ji Yuxingye's face turned crimson all the way to his ears. He looked so adorably flustered. But Li Yuan wasn't done teasing him. She climbed into his lap, lightly licking his red ears, while her fingers playfully squeezed his sensitive chest. "Ji Yuxingye, your body is a lot more honest than your words," she whispered. She had the face of an innocent puppy but the body of a hormone-fueled athlete, yet she was so innocent it was almost dangerous. Just a few touches here and there, and Ji Yuxingye was already trembling, his ears red as if they might start dripping blood, his sharp gaze gradually becoming dazed. His iron will was crumbling under the assault, while Li Yuan mischievously smiled. She suddenly leaned in even closer, her fingers gliding down his firm muscles, taking advantage of his weakened resolve to ask, "Did you lock me in this villa just to satisfy your desire to control everything about me?" When Ji Yuxingye blushed and tried to explain that he was just trying to protect her, Li Yuan leaned in even closer, forcing him to nervously back away. It didn't seem like he was lying, but she was tired of living like a caged bird. Every day, she was forced to take strange medicines and was trapped in this huge villa, guarded by a bunch of bodyguards. Ji Yuxingye knew this life wasn't right for someone as strong-willed as Li Yuan, but he couldn't stand the thought of her being in danger outside. He felt the need to keep her where he could see her, where she'd be safe. However, Li Yuan didn't agree with him. Even though she had lost her memory, she still knew how to take care of herself. Instead of staying here confused, she decided it was better to leave and find out the truth. So, she firmly ordered Ji Yuxingye to let her go. When he hesitated, she swiftly lunged forward, taking advantage of his shock to grab the gun from his waist and press it against her temple. In a clear, strong voice, she threatened, "Let me go, or I'll pull the trigger right now." Seeing that she wasn't bluffing, Ji Yuxingye finally panicked and begged her to put the gun down. The two of them, both equally stubborn, stared each other down for a long time, neither willing to give in. In the end, the one who cared the most was the first to back down. Frustrated, Ji Yuxingye reluctantly agreed but set one condition: "Promise me you'll protect yourself out there." "I'll be waiting for you to come back home," he said, sounding like he was talking to someone he deeply cared about. Li Yuan was caught off guard by how simple his request was. She quickly packed a few things and left with the gun, but she had no intention of ever coming back. Ji Yuxingye had no choice but to agree let her go, though it was clear he was exactly fearless. He knew that before losing her memory, she had plenty of enemies. To protect her, he spread a rumor that the missing 4-emblem seal was in her possession. This seal was well known as the mark of leadership in the merchant guild, and ever since the last leader died, its whereabouts had been a mystery. It was also rumored to contain a secret treasure, making it so valuable that her enemies wouldn't dare kill her, unless... Ji Yuxingye's eyes betrayed a hint of worry. Lately, Li Yuan kept having dreams about a house with a yard in the southern part of the city. She was convinced that if she could just find that place, she might start remembering something. But on the way there, a massive truck suddenly appeared and smashed into her car, sending it flying. She didn't have time to react and crashed into the roadside, her head getting injured and blood starting to pour out. In a daze, she noticed a large group of men in black approaching with guns. Her mind raced. There was no way her enemies could have known it was her in the car unless someone inside the villa had tipped them off. Just then, a few gunshots rang out, and the men in black dropped to the ground, one by one. Moments later, a white-haired man, whom Li Yuan couldn't recall ever meeting, appeared at her window. Casually, he climbed into the passenger seat and greeted her like an old friend. Yuan, it's been a while. How'd you end up in such a mess?" His red eyes glinted wildly as he smiled, a carefree, reckless grin like that of a madman. In the span of just 2 minutes, Li Yuan forced herself to regain as much mobility as possible. The white-haired man spoke again, boasting, "I took care of everyone outside. Headshots for all of them. Not a single one left alive." He had just killed so many people, yet he acted like it was nothing, even seeking praise. Clearly, this guy was a lunatic among lunatics. Li Yuan couldn't help but wonder how she ever knew someone like him. Still, in this situation, her enemies were strong, and she was at a disadvantage. So, she faked familiarity, smiling and saying, "Yeah, long time no see." But the white-haired man froze, shocked. This wasn't the cold and distant Li Yuan he remembered. Suddenly, the man leaned in closer, scrutinizing her face. He probed cautiously, Yuan, if you've forgotten about me, that would really hurt my feelings. After all, a version of you that doesn't remember me doesn't really have much value." Hearing the underlying threat in his words, Li Yuan discreetly picked up a shard of broken glass from the shattered car window. Keeping her expression stiff, she quickly explained, "I haven't forgotten anything. I'm just a bit slow to react today." With that, she plunged the glass shard into his shoulder and immediately bolted out of the car, desperate to escape from this psycho. Before she could react, a sharp pain suddenly shot through her back, and the next second, she blacked out, her consciousness fading fast. Behind her, the white-haired man, his red eyes gleaming with excitement, stared at her with that crazy glint. Now this was the Li Yuan he remembered. It had been so long since they'd had this much fun. Why not catch up at my place today? Meanwhile, other gang leaders would typically take their girls to clubs or karaoke bars, but Wu Juanzi, being the awkward guy he was, decided to go sightseeing with Song Luo instead. Turns out, his father used to bring him here all the time when he was a kid. The moment he mentioned his father, though, a wave of disgust flashed across Song Luo's face. Her dad had been a gambling addict, always in debt. The debt collectors were terrifying. They'd storm into her house, demanding money, and her timid self would always hide, too scared to make a sound. But even then, they usually found her. The chilling fear of those moments still haunted her to this day. Remembering the painful past, tears started streaming down Song Luo's face. This time, Wu Juanzi finally gathered enough courage to gently pat her on the back and softly apologize. "I'm sorry. Is it because of me that you're remembering all this?" Before he could finish apologizing, his lips were suddenly sealed by a soft kiss. His face instantly flushed red, all the way to his ears. Caught off guard, he froze, unsure of how to react. Originally, she had left Ji Yuxingye to try and regain her lost memories on her own, but she hadn't expected to be ambushed by the white-haired man. Even as she collapsed, she could still clearly sense the air moving around her, and although the sharp pain in her back had been intense, it quickly faded, leaving no lingering discomfort. Rubber bullets. She hurriedly raised her head, only to see the white-haired man laughing without a care in the world. "Yep, that's the ruthless Li Yuan I know. Still hitting as hard as ever, but that's how I like it." His crimson eyes gleamed with a terrifying madness. How in the world did she ever get mixed up with such a complete psycho? But maybe she could get some useful information out of him. Before she knew it, she was in his car, secretly plotting. As long as she played the role of her old self, the one from before her memory loss, everything should be fine. The car drove towards the outskirts, and on the way, she happened to see Wu Juanzi kissing another woman. She couldn't help but take a second look, but the man beside her instantly noticed her attention. Such a secluded place, perfect for doing something shady. She rolled her eyes at him, her patience wearing thin. Of course, this freak's mind is filled with nothing but dirty thoughts. He burst out laughing, completely unbothered by her reaction. Killing someone and dumping the body here would be easy. Okay, she admitted it, understanding his twisted logic was beyond her. After what seemed like forever, the car finally stopped in front of a Gothic-style mansion. Inside, it had everything: a fully equipped medical room, a pharmacy, and even a pharmaceutical lab. Judging by all this, he was likely a doctor, or something worse. Suddenly, he casually asked her, "Wanna take a bath first?" She couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Did that mean their relationship was more than just acquaintances? The thought made Li Yuan awkwardly scratch her neck. I don't think it's really convenient for me to shower here." Her cheeks were flushed red with embarrassment, but then the man yelled in shock, "Oh my God, Li Yuan. You don't actually think I'd spy on you while you're showering, do you?" She quickly let out a nervous laugh. Well, at least there was no weird tension between them. But just as she started to relax, his next words had her heart racing again.